Awesome. Great. So thank you all for joining us again. Really do appreciate it. My name is Shifumi. I'm one of the co-founders of Collab, and here are some of the house rules for attending our events. So we do record our events. So by joining, you're consenting to being recorded. So say hi. We encourage you all to engage in the live chat if you can. Feel free to drop your LinkedIn, ask questions, connect with one another. Feel free to also share whatever takeaways and learnings that you learned from this session online, and feel free to tag Jay or tag us as well at joincollab_io. Feel free to connect with others. We'll be doing a brief networking session towards the end of the talk, the last 15 to 20 minutes, and have fun and have a great time while you're here connecting and learning with other people. So for the new folks who are joining us, a little bit about who we are and what we do. So we're Collab, and essentially we're an online program that helps career switchers gain real-world experience, specifically if you're trying to break into product management, product design, and software engineering and software development. So we've had over 500 people join us and upskill and build products through our program, which is exciting. And it's great to see the amazing boost of confidence that they have by being able to build something, ship something, and put something on their portfolios. We also have a boost, an amazing 85% career advancement rate, which is the number of people who land jobs and promotions just within 3 months of completing our program. We have alumni at top tech companies as well as startups. And yeah, we're super excited about the work that we're doing. And we are very lucky to connect with folks like Jay, who's here to spread his knowledge and share a lot of the things that he's learned. So how about I pass it on to you, Jay, so you can quickly introduce yourself to the audience and share more about yourself, and then we'll sort of get to the topic for today. So how's it going, Jay, and how are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so I'm the founder of mentormesh.io. It's a community of lifelong learners. We've got people from across the tech industry, including myself, and we basically help people level up in their careers. And a lot of what I love to do for my community at MentorMesh is, of course, share my story. So really quickly about me. So I don't have a bachelor's degree. I'm Black and Korean. I started tech later on in life a little bit. I used to be an office assistant, but I've been a GPM at Twitter. I've been a director at Salesforce, senior PM at Microsoft, director of PM at Salesforce, senior director of product at Peloton, and an engineering manager at Expedia. So I started my career as an entrepreneur. So things like doing the work yourself, building a company and a business, even though you have no idea what you're doing. That's exactly what I encourage people to do. Learning in public, building a presence on LinkedIn. There's a lot of things you can do to get noticed and to advance in the industry. And so I try to teach people from my experience, coming from a very non-traditional background, to getting at some of the highest levels at some of the best companies in the world. So just love to share that. And if you got questions, I got some answers for you.
That's very inspirational, Jay. Anytime I hear your story and your path, it's very inspiring to see. And that's something that we talk about a lot at Collab, non-traditional backgrounds. It doesn't matter who you're from, who you are, you can definitely break into the tech industry and go on to succeed. So now we're talking specifically about product management in this event. So I'm curious to hear about your transition in a lot more detail and just sharing how you broke into product management specifically, and how were you able to get your foot in the door, because it's a very challenging a role to get into, and a lot of people struggle. So any notes about how you managed to break in, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right in that product is hard to get into. The interesting thing though is that I never tried to break into product. I didn't even know what product management was, right? All of a sudden it's this super hot buzzword the last 5 years, but it was less, it was known, but less, let's say, early on in my career. I really focused on being a problem solver. I think bringing my entrepreneurial mindset into the workplace is what got me noticed. And what I've learned, and I encourage other people, is you can join a company based on your strengths, right? You get into the company, you build relationships, you build internal capital, a reputation. People know that they start to respect your work. They start to know who you are. You're building relationships inside the company. And then you can start to meet teams, network, and then transfer to different organizations. So I did that 3 times in my career, where I went to Microsoft in an IT job. I didn't necessarily want that job, but I wanted to get into Microsoft. And then after I got in there, did the same thing, entrepreneurial mindset, helped as much as I can, met other teams, found the team that I wanted to join, and then moved over, which was the Power BI team. So I did that at Salesforce, also did that at Expedia. So product was not something that I necessarily chose. What ended up happening is I started the engineering route, but I found that I was much better with talking with people, and I was really stuck on why. Like, why are we doing this? Is this the right thing? Are you sure this is the right thing? Who said we should build this? Are you sure? Because after shipping products and doing work that I was told was top priority, but then after you do it, you realize like nobody's adopting it. And then you start to think, okay, why did we do this again? So I found myself getting stuck in the why. And lo and behold, I found out more about product management, right? We talk about strategy, we get to know the customer, we understand the problem, we define the solution. So that's how, like, when I started to get in bigger companies, it started to become clear to me that that was probably the lane that I best fit in. But the reality is, and I share this with a lot of folks, is that there's a core skill set that I encourage people to learn, a lot of it around leadership and people management, not managing people from like a direct report standpoint, but influencing without authority. So your people skills, your relationship skills, they are transferable, because right now people see me as a product leader, and I have been for this latter half of my career, but I could take an engineering role, I could take a program management role, because at the end of the day, as you advance your career, what you're doing is leadership, and leadership spans all domains. So I would encourage people to be a problem solver. Now, what seat you sit in when you're solving that problem might change, but product management specifically, I've got, of course, a lot of tips, and we can talk through that. But for me, I got into product by building internal reputations at the companies I was already in, and basically doing as much as I can for the teams that I wanted to join, learned about what they were doing, and then eventually they would open positions for me, or somebody that I had a good reputation with would open a position for me in product. So that's typically how it would happen for me.
Well, that's very interesting, and thanks for sharing, because that entrepreneurial mindset that really stuck out, as well as relationship building. So a follow-up question to that is, there are a lot of folks that I hear and speak to me and reach out and say, "Hey, I'm bad at networking. I'm not extroverted. How do I form those relationships?" What advice would you give those people, or what tactics or tips should they use if they're just not naturally outspoken or out there to be able to make those connections and do those relationships that really matter when you want to switch careers or switch roles?
Yeah, so that's a question I get all the time, and I'm with you, right? When I joined the tech industry, I didn't know anyone in tech. I had no successful friends or family that was in tech. Who could I ask? How do you meet people? It's hard, and to be honest, so number one, meeting people in the industry you want to join is the most powerful thing that you can do to advance your career and actually get the type of knowledge that you need, right? Like, by having mentorship and people that are in the industry, that's how you learn the fastest. So that was a big reason why I started MentorMesh, because I've been in the industry for over 15 years, I know thousands of people in the industry, and because I've worked with them for so long, I can bring a lot of people together, and it's really difficult for your average person who's not in tech, who's starting out, to do that. So that was one of the big reasons why I started MentorMesh, is to give people kind of a way in. Like, you want to meet people in tech, you tell me the company, you tell me the role, I'll bring somebody to give a talk for you, and then you can hear from them. But here's the thing though, like, especially for people that are interested in product, a lot of times when you join boot camps and programs and stuff, there's obviously a lot of frameworks and domain knowledge that is used in product. Absolutely important, 100%. But if you work for a big tech company, chances are there's tens of thousands of people that work there. I'm telling you that your job is going to be networking. So meeting people, getting good at meeting strangers, and building relationships with people is going to be critical for you to survive in a large company. Because chances are, especially as a product leader, you're working with engineering, you're working with marketing, you're working with design, you're working with communications, you're working with legal, you're working with security. Guess what? Those are all different teams, different people, right? How do you build relationships with them? And none of them have to listen to you. None of them do. So product is one of those positions where you own everything and nothing. So how do you convince a bunch of people that you need to work with to pay attention to you? That's relationship building. Sorry, somebody wants to call me in the middle of my live stream. Okay, but essentially, that is what a lot of leadership positions, and product is a leadership role. That's what you do. You got to build these relationships. How do you get people that don't have to listen to you to pay attention to you? That's a skill. And what's interesting about that, though, is that meeting strangers in the world is a very similar process. And I'll tell you, like, really quickly, what that means is for people that are uncomfortable about this, here's the deal. The key to networking and knowing people is to care about them first. When you meet people, don't talk about what you need. Don't talk about what job you're looking for and what you're hoping to get out of the exchange. That's a very selfish way to build a relationship. You start the relationship by asking about them, being interested in what they care about and what their goals are and what makes them excited. That's how you build relationships. You let them talk and you take an active interest. And guess what? That same attitude you bring into the workforce. If you are a brand new PM and you have all these stakeholders, guess what? It's not just you that they serve. They've got their own backlog, their own priorities, their own stresses. So when you reach out to people, don't talk about what you need as product and how excited you are because you're in product and good for you, we'll get there. But that's not how you start a relationship. You talk to your engineering lead, what are you guys working on? What's important to you? What do you wish was different? What's been going on the last year? You know, tell me what's good and bad about your role. How can I help you, right? If you start that way with relationships, people view you differently and they start to actually respond and care about your timeline because you care about theirs. Like a lot of engineering managers, they've got technical debt they've got to think about. But product people are like, feature, feature, feature. That's good, but if the feature launches, but the infrastructure is bad and the debt makes the performance bad, everything is bad for everyone, right? So there's got to be a balance and an exchange. But if me as a product person, I don't care about tech debt and I don't care about what's going on with them, they're not going to care about me either. So the key to building relationships really is helping other people, helping them, trying to find ways, excuses to give them support and help and care about their roadmap. They will naturally start to care about your roadmap.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And for people who are even trying to break in, so let's sort of like go along that thought process now. Imagine someone who's like trying to break into the industry and you're networking, you know, it's easy for them to feel like they don't have much to give, even though they want to care about you. But it's like, I can put myself in the shoes of someone who's trying to be a PM. I don't have PM experience. I'm from different industry and I'm reaching out to a mentor. I don't really have that much to give. I can care about them, but what is going to make that relationship lasting to them? Or what tips would you suggest? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so there's a couple things I would add to that. So anybody that's brand new, like, don't think that you need to be an expert in order to give any help and support. So it depends on the context of what you're talking about. But let's say, you know, one of the things that I encourage people to do is to share what they're learning on LinkedIn, share what they're learning on Twitter. The reason you do that is because you're showing the world your enthusiasm. And the reality is, if you just read something, let's say you were, you know, learning about success metrics as a product manager, you learned all this really cool stuff. If you share that information, there's going to be people that have never even heard the term success metric. And they're going to say, what does that even mean? And there's going to be people that are going to never heard of product management, right? It's not as known as like software engineering. So you're going to teach people simply by curating information for them. That's what rookies can do if you're brand new, right? What you're doing is you're curating information for other people. And essentially, that's mentorship. When you teach somebody something they've never heard before, they've never dove into before, and you're sharing that information, that's effectively mentorship at scale, okay? So here's the thing too. So if, let's say you already have a mentor and that's the thing, you're like, okay, or maybe this is even true if you're at work and you have this person you want to help, or maybe you want them to be interested in you. And I just told you to be helpful to them. And they've been in the industry 10 years and they're like, who are you? Here's the thing. A lot of us have been in the industry for a while. I actually love to help people. Now, not everybody, but a lot of us do. So if you're curious and you come to me and say, Jay, how do I break into tech? I'd love to get some advice from you. I heard this about you. Can you tell me how you did it? I would gladly tell them, because you took the time to learn a little bit about me and you're asking me a question, so I'm happy to share, right? A lot of people, especially that have been in the industry for a while, love to share their experiences. So honestly, what you need to do is be an active listener and go do what we ask you to do. So if you come to me and say, Jay, what should I do? And I give you 3 things to do, and then you come back 2 weeks later and you have not done those 3 things, that tells me you're not serious. Now I'm no longer interested in this relationship, because why would I be? Anybody that's been around for a while, leadership is about mentorship. Leadership is mentorship, right? I actually usually say it the other way around. Mentorship is leadership. So anybody that's a leader in a company, what they do all day is mentor. They may not call it that, but that is what they do. If you're a VP, you are meeting with all of your different teams and they are asking you questions, they're giving you presentations, you're giving them feedback, you are giving them advice, you are giving them suggestions and things that they should do. So as a mentee, if somebody takes the time that you respect and they give you time, you ask questions, they give you answers, and you implement nothing, you're telling them that the exchange is not worth it. But most leaders, good leaders, actually do want to see you succeed. So take the advice serious, show up consistently. If you haven't, now, as far as the helping part, right? I think that's going to depend on the leader that you're talking to or who you're trying to build a relationship with. But even taking opportunities to give people credit, I think, is a very cool way to show appreciation. Let's say you're listening to somebody's talk on Twitter Spaces and they say something that's very cool. Give them a shout out. You know, say you really you love something that somebody said, right? If they took the time to share information with people and to help people in the industry up level, they would probably appreciate a shout out. It's just nice. It's good courtesy. It's just saying thank you, right? When people feel appreciated, they give more of their time. If they feel like there's value, a lot of us, you know, we want to do something that we care about, that we love. Well, a lot of people love to help other people. And if they took the time to mentor you, they would probably love if you did what they suggested and gave them credit for doing it, simply because, you know, people want to feel good about themselves. So, and I think depending on the context, you know, my answer might change, but I think in general, connecting people, taking them serious, being appreciative, right? Like those are critical ways, I think, to get people's attention and to have them want to continue the relationship, because people that have experience love to share experience and they love to see you progress in your career, especially if you were taking advice that they gave you.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. The last thing you mentioned, taking that advice and showing them that you've taken that advice and implemented some of those action items. It actually goes a long way. And now that you mentioned it, I actually recall someone shooting me an email recently. I spoke with them. It was like a cold email. I hopped on a call with them one time, and they emailed me back and said, "Hey, I took your advice and I landed in a role," and that made me very happy. And I was able to jump on a follow-up call to help them with their new challenge. And you're more willing to do that because they've taken your advice and they're very clear about that. So I think that's very helpful. And now that you're vocalizing that, I think it's very helpful for others to know that if someone is out there taking the time to help you, make sure you have that feedback loop, because that allows them to invest in the relationship. So before Mentor Mesh, you worked at tons of amazing companies: Microsoft, Salesforce, Twitter, Peloton. You know, could you just talk to us a little bit about like one of the most impactful products that you built, or the ones that you're very proud of as a product manager? And we'll sort of then dive into the mentorship aspect of things after that.
Yeah, definitely happy to share. So by far, my most proud product is definitely MentorMesh, but we don't need to talk about MentorMesh all day. But that's definitely my proudest when it comes to impact and just loving what I do and loving the impact of what I've seen. It's definitely MentorMesh. But if I think about my corporate career, so I'm somebody that loves impact. It's not so much about what I do, it's about the impact of what I do. And I think what comes up probably the most is my Salesforce experience. So I was a director of product for Salesforce, and we were developing and running a data governance program for the first time. So they didn't have a data governance, enterprise-wide until my team was there, and I was leading one of the product teams that was focused on data discovery and metadata management. A lot of that was about organizing Salesforce data making it discoverable for data scientists, making it discoverable for analysts and product managers, and taking different platforms and services and making sure that from a feature set perspective, they were delivering value to the internal customers at Salesforce. Data science, understanding your data, this is what unlocks personalization, innovation. A lot of the cool features and experiences that drive product innovation come from underlying data and understanding your customers. That was something that I ended up talking about quite a bit because it had a pretty big impact on the company as a whole. It was brand new initiatives that had impact on nearly every team at Salesforce. So it was a lot of fun to kind of be a part of those conversations, meet a lot of people, see light bulbs go off when we started introducing features and telling them about the platforms that we were developing on. So we worked really closely with the data platform teams. I was product for that. We had an engineering team, and we were talking to customers and delivering value, and knowing that that value was not only fundamental for security and compliance for the company, but also helped to unlock innovation. So it was a lot of fun. I think it was one of the more impactful projects that I worked on.
Awesome. That sounds like very impactful because it touches several verticals across the business. So if you think about that project, even any other projects, how do you think mentorship played a role in you even getting the chance to work on such a project, or even being able to execute it to the level that you were able to? How did mentorship sort of like play a role there, and how do you leverage your mentors if you did?
Yeah, so here's the thing. A lot of people, when they think about mentorship, what they're looking for is a one-on-one relationship with one person that is super interested in their career, and they go back to that person. Maybe they meet with them every other week or something. You get advice, you go do the advice. That's mentorship to most people. So I want to flip that conversation because I've never had that. And asking for that and getting that is very difficult, right? What I want people to do is think about community mentorship. So I've had many people in my career that will give me an hour, a quarter, let's say. I've had some executives at Amazon and Expedia and some other companies that I've worked for. They can't give me every other week because they don't have that, but they'll meet with me every quarter or something and say what's up, and I'll tell them specific questions and how it's going. I'm building relationships with them. I've definitely had a handful of those. That's mentorship, right? Whether I called them a mentor or not doesn't matter. I was able to squeeze a few minutes, ask some key questions. They gave me some answers, but I've had dozens of people over my career and dozens of impactful conversations that cumulatively together, that's mentorship. Because the thing is, people think they have these very unique problems. And in MentorMesh, I've been running it for almost 3 years now. I've literally had thousands of one-on-ones. Everybody asked the same 10 questions. So what that told me very clearly is that I need to find a way to talk to people at scale, because I can't just say the same thing over like thousands of times. That doesn't make any sense, right? So, that made me start to build video content programs, things like that, right? So what I would encourage people is, what you need is community. You need a network of mentors. You need a number of people that you can go to occasionally to ask these questions. And what's very cool about that too is that you get a variety of experiences and a variety of answers. So you start to learn that there's no one right way. You'll see some themes, right, that everybody typically says, but generally you're going to get a little bit different flavor. And so meeting with professionals as I built relationships, it's everything. Because think about this too. So I've had VPs at Expedia and high-level directors at Amazon meet with me one-on-one. That's not easy to do, right? And this is early on in my career. How did that happen? It happened because I built an internal reputation. I had a reputation of doing good work in the companies I was at. And as I was doing and helping, right, these different organizations, the VP would get wind of me, right, of the work I was doing. That's when I would say, hey, I would love to get some advice on this. I would love your opinion on this. I wanted to share something. Could I get like 30 minutes? Now, why did they decide to give me time? Because I already proved that I was somebody worth investing in. I didn't just go up to a VP and say, hey, can I have some time? I built an internal reputation first. Then I asked strategically the VPs that I helped, right? I'm in their org. I'm doing good work for their org. They've already heard my name by reputation. So now when I ask, they're like, okay. And then I make sure, again, when they give me advice, I take that advice. I act appreciative. I make sure when I meet with them again, that they know that I did the work that they told me to do, right? So when you're in a company, you have an opportunity to build an internal reputation, That reputation can help you build relationships with people. Eventually, you can start to build a network of mentors. And again, networking, building communities, meeting people on LinkedIn, meeting people on Twitter. You'd be surprised how many people could give you amazing advice because they don't need to be 10 levels above you. They can be your same level or lower than you, but different experience would still add to the quality of your perspective.
Yeah, that's remarkable and great perspective there. And it's easier to establish relationships with people who are very close to you and know you, and that you can build from there. And I also love the idea of using community to sort of like crowdsource a lot of mentorship. So that's super helpful. So now you mentioned you've obviously mentored hundreds, if not thousands of people. What would you say is the common mistake specifically around product managers that product managers make when trying to initiate some form of mentorship or even having ongoing mentorship? And how do you think they can avoid some of those mistakes, if you could share? Because I'm sure, you know, some of us have made those errors and we want to make sure we're not making them moving forward.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that come to mind. So especially if you're seeking a mentor or looking for that community support, the worst thing you could do is introduce yourself by asking for something. People do that to me all the time. Hey, Jay, here's my resume. Can you review it? I'm like, I don't even know who you are, right? Hey, Jay, I'm interested in a job. Can you help me get a job? Can you give me a referral? I'm like, referrals are I don't know you. How can I give you a referral? That's not how you introduce yourself to people. So you talk to people in real life, you talk to people online the same way you would in real life. Would you go up to a stranger and throw them your resume and say, can you give me a job? We all want jobs. Like we all want opportunities. What I want people to do is focus on building a relationship. Don't just come into a relationship and tell me what you need. Okay, you gotta build rapport with me first. Give me a reason to care about your journey first, right? So one big mistake is that people have a tendency to be very liberal about what they want, and they forget that if you want to build relationships, you should care about what I want. You should try to figure out what I'm interested in. If I'm posting content or I'm doing something for a company, act interested in me for a minute. And if you are interested in me and what I've done, and it makes sense and it feels legit, I'm much more likely to respond to you and help you, right? So that's one thing I would say is definitely you gotta give first, be interested in other people first if you want them to be interested in you. The second thing is when you're studying to be in product, and I totally get this, like you gotta know, like there's jargon, there's frameworks, there's terminology that you need to know. But one big mistake I think people make when they're aspiring product managers, think about this for a minute. They spend so much time studying that they think that, and a lot of this is just the way that the world works and what the world has told us to do. They go study and do their best to become an expert, and then they go apply for 500 jobs, and then they get auto rejected by 499 of them, and then nicely rejected by the other one. And then they say, oh no, how do I get into product? It's so hard. Okay, so that's true. It is hard, but you got to think outside. So if I'm hiring for an aspiring product manager, I'm not looking for an expert. I'm looking for enthusiasm. I'm looking for somebody that I want to invest in, because an aspiring product management it's an entry-level role. So the question is, how do I show these hiring managers that I'm excited, I'm passionate, that I would do the work, that I have grit and consistency? How do I show that? Because it's not possible for me to become an expert because I read a bunch of books. I can understand base knowledge, absolutely. But most of the jobs that I had, even the product jobs, I did not study product management before I got those jobs. I was hired based on reputation. People had trust that whatever it is I can do, I could learn. And that's why it didn't matter, right? Tech is always going to change. Now it's product management, but that title could go away. There could be other titles with different skill sets and different things that we're doing, but you still need a job, right? So a lot of it is about making sure, no, not just study. Absolutely, you have to study, absolutely. But people need to know who you are. Because if I don't know you, I can't offer you a job. I can't see that hard work you're doing. I have no idea who you are. I can't even appreciate the work that you're putting in. So things like building in public, things like posting on LinkedIn, the purpose of LinkedIn, they are B2B business. They exist and make money by selling licenses to recruiters and hiring managers to find you. So are you findable on the platform? A lot of times people don't get jobs because they're not connected. Nobody knows who you are. Everybody's just out here throwing resumes at jobs, and that's not the best way to get a job. It's not the fastest way anyway. So yes, learn the skills, but be seen, be public, meet, network, right? Build in public, build a brand. And the other thing is do the work. If you want to be a product manager, go build a product. Now, you might say, well, I'm not a software engineer. How could I build it? Well, there is so much work going into defining and understanding the problem and talking to customers and doing market research. There's so much that needs to be done before any engineer gets talked to at all, right? All this work that you can do and demonstrate, and then find other passionate people just like you. Find some software engineers that are trying to break into software engineering. Come together, do something, right? That's what you guys are doing in Collab, right? Do stuff together. That experience counts. And nobody can tell you otherwise, because most tech companies, that's how they existed. Nobody was making money right out the gate. Somebody had an idea, we did a bunch of research and we started doing stuff. A lot of things obviously worked out. And then now all of a sudden there's Google, there's Microsoft, but they weren't getting paid at the beginning. So your startup experience, even if you fail, and you will fail a lot, it counts. And plus, most of the time when you're interviewed for your failings. Nobody wants to care. Nobody cares about the textbook way to do things. I want to know about all the mistakes that you made so that you don't make those same mistakes when you work for me. Because when you make those mistakes, you're like, oh, I'm never going to do that again, right? Those lessons, that's critical. That's what you pay for when you hire somebody that's experienced, right? So make sure people know who you are and go get real experience. You don't have to get hired to do that. You hire yourself and go get real experience.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I think one other thing that you mentioned that is super key there is with relationship building, it's a long-term game. Like I can't message you, hey Jay, I need this right now. It's a long-term game. You have to put in the work to get to know them a little bit. Because I do feel people always think that now it's time to find a job, and now you have to do all these things to reach out to all these people. But if you build those relationships, when it's time, those things will come naturally. So I think that is huge. And I think another point you mentioned about getting your own experience again, that is the reason why we exist at Collab. And I really do appreciate you, really emphasizing the importance of creating your own experience. So now let's talk about even just picking a mentor. What would you say? I know it's probably different for everyone, because people have different needs. But what would you say is sort of like best practices or best approach when it comes to picking the right mentor for you, based off of your needs and where you want to go, especially for aspiring product managers, or even if you're trying to grow as a product manager?
Yeah. So kind of like I mentioned before, pick a bunch of mentors. I think that would be one thing I would definitely say. Pick people that know what they're talking about. I would also say that too. There's a lot of people that have some experience, but give a lot of advice. They give too much advice probably because they haven't been in the industry long enough to know that. Like for instance, if you are looking to be hired and you want advice, yes, talk to people that have been hired and talk to hiring managers, right? Because who's making the hiring decision? So make sure that the people that you're talking to, at least a subset of them, have the experience. And when they talk about something, make sure that they've done that before. That's something that I think I'm really big on. Like I can't talk to things I've never done. I can't talk about categories I've never been in, but I can talk about jobs that I've done and things that I've actually done in my career. So I think that's important. So pay attention to who you're talking to and the quality of information that you get. But at the same time, take everything with a grain of salt. Because everybody has different circumstance, everybody has different levels of privilege and different means, right? So one person's experience may not be your experience. So, if you come from a non-traditional background, it's probably a good idea for you to mix up your mentor group with people that also have non-traditional backgrounds and with traditional backgrounds. And here's why that's important too. A lot of times too, you're trying to get into product, so you think you just need to meet product managers, right? Wrong. Yes, you need to meet product managers, but who do product managers work with every day? Engineers, designers, marketers, go-to-market strategy folks, product marketing managers. We're talking to security. We're talking to everybody. As a product manager, you're not like in a team of product managers and you guys are just all in a corner product managing together and that's your team. That's not your team. That's your support group maybe, but that's not your team. I'm working with engineering, I'm working with design, I'm working with communications, right? Like we work with everyone. So what does that tell you? Half of our job is to build relationships with people that are not product managers. So who should be in your mentorship circle? Engineering leaders, design leaders, communication leaders, legal leaders, security, right? These are your counterparts. The more you know about what they do, the more effective your relationship building with them will be. So a lot of times, people will encourage product people and program managers to be more technical. And here's why that is. It's not because you're going to be implementing any software solutions. That's not it. But some of your best friends are going to be software engineers. It's so much easier to build strong relationships with engineers if you know a little bit about what they do. If you come to the conversation and you've got no concept of engineering at all, they're going to get exhausted by you really quickly, because every other word they say, they have to explain it to you because you have no idea. But imagine if you took the time to learn, and now you can have intelligent conversations with them. You don't need to dive deep. You just need to know high level stuff. They'll respect you faster. They're much more willing to engage with you because you are interested in what they do. So when you think about your mentorship community, pick people with different levels of experience, pick people in different domains, right? Pick people that have diverse backgrounds and traditional backgrounds, because guess who you're going to work with? A lot of people from traditional backgrounds. So you kind of have to understand the way they think, the way they kind of process information, right? So all these different types of people, if you have exposure to them, you're getting mentored by them, you're asking questions, you start to categorize and think how they respond, you're understanding how to build quality relationships with your audience. And in product, it's critical because, again, you own everything and have control over nothing. So your ability to kind of build those relationships is going to be key. So keep that mentorship crew diversified.
Awesome. That is super helpful. I again love the idea of just crowdsourcing mentors. And now the second layer on top of that, not just reaching out to other product managers, like extending that relationship building to engineers, legal, all of that. And so now let's go into sort of like mentor mesh. How can people take advantage of your community to learn the best practices of mentorship, gain a mentor, learn about a lot of those things? I know you're super passionate about that, so I definitely wanted to give you a chance to, talk about it and let us know how we can get involved and how we can be part of that community.
Yeah, definitely appreciate the question. So Mentor Mesh is the community that I wish I had. It's the community that I think all of us need, especially in the tech industry. Because in tech, if you want to stay in demand, we tend to move companies fairly often, right? Which means at some point, you're always kind of in this transition point. You're always in new environments. You're always doing new things, because that's the best way to stay in demand, is you have to follow the work, follow and find out what people need, what's hot in the market. Like, you have to pay attention to those things. So you end up changing jobs a lot. Mentor Mesh is all about building that community. Like maybe you've never been in the e-com space, but because you've been, like you said, this is a long-term relationship building game. If I want to join e-com, I know people that are in e-com. If all of a sudden I'm in fintech, I know people in fintech. If I'm in healthcare, I can talk to people in healthcare, right? So this is about building long-term relationships with people across the industry and helping each other level up. So right now, primarily Mentor Mesh is about, we've got a couple of different platforms. So mentormesh.io, everybody's welcome, it's free. We do weekly events. Right now we're doing something called 30 Days of Mentor Mesh, where almost every day we have some type of event. We do Twitter Spaces events. We do LinkedIn audio events. We do Zoom calls. We've got a town hall September 9th. So definitely encourage everybody to show up for that. But that's what we do. We try to create events, and I bring people from across the industry that have non-traditional backgrounds, traditional backgrounds, and I help introduce you to these people. You get to know them, you ask them questions, you get engaged in the community. And then occasionally I'll run paid programs. Like in September 26th, we're going to be launching our next accelerator version, our program, which is going to be about bringing cohorts together. And then we go do a lot of the things that I'm talking about, we do together as a cohort. So, I just launched a product management bootcamp that just completed a couple of weeks ago, where we'll dive, and we had 15 different instructors from across the industry. But really, Mentor Mesh is about community. So you come to the events, come speak at the events, right? Come on stage if you are on Twitter Spaces, come ask a question, network, meet people. We have events all the time. We try to share resources and posts. Right now, if you want to learn, there's so much to learn, but I want you to learn from people that have the job that you want. because if you want to be a senior PM, you should learn from senior PMs. Because sometimes learning programs can be very high level, very generic, and it's hard to get the real life examples and real life stories that you can't find in books. So for me, what I'm trying to do is bring as many mentors and senior people and junior people onto the same platform to build relationships with each other. Because think about what naturally comes from that. So when I take a job at any tech company, usually it's a high-paced, fast growth company. I'll go, and then initially, I have to come up with this product vision, product strategy. What am I building? And then I'm given like 5 to 10 headcount. Like, how do I hire? I need to know people, because if I don't know people, then I have to go through the normal hiring process, and it can take months and months and months. It would take me an entire year to fill 10 positions if I did it the traditional way. But if I've been networking and building trust and I know people, I can recommend people to my job. They still need to go through the hiring process, right? They still need to do that. There's no way of getting around that. But they do get to skip the application process. And if they do well, they got the job, right? I'm already a fan. We know each other, right? So even senior people are going to want to know a lot of people that they want to invest in, because given the opportunity, they're going to turn right back around and say, hey, all these people that came to my mentorship spaces and always were proactively listening and they were doing what I suggested that they do, I already have trust that they're going to give 120%. So if I have an APM role, you better believe I'm going to call them first, right? So it's definitely goes both ways. But the idea and the vibe of MentorMesh is come to the community, meet people, give first, build relationships, get mentorship and knowledge and support. What naturally will happen if you do that first is job opportunities, absolutely. But think about it. It's not just this job. In 2 years, you might want another job. In 3 more years, you might need another job. You may want to quit product and do something totally different. But if you've built this and you've been a part of this network for years, you've got people. You've got people you could ask. You've got mentorship. You've got support. If you ever get in trouble or you're laid off, you've got people. And you didn't wait till you were laid off to build those relationships. You've been building them the entire time. And because that's really difficult, and I totally get that, that's what MentorMesh is for. If you don't know how to do it, that's all good. Nobody in here knows how to do it. That's why we're here, and that's why we're doing it together. You bring people together that have that common thread of they value community, cool things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing and that's very incredible. One thing I really value about you, Jay, is your focus on community, and you do that so well, exceptionally well. So definitely wanted to let you know right now that you're doing an outstanding job for the community, not just product managers. But yeah, it's incredible to see that those lasting relationships. You don't know when you would actually need to leverage some of that. So I really do appreciate you creating a space for that. So if anyone is interested, definitely do check out MentorMesh. It would actually be pushing more MentorMesh in our newsletter that's going to be going out. So let more people sort of know about the community and can actually start understanding how to make the best of it. Last couple questions before we sort of go into the networking portion. How do people best prepare for those networking sessions? Let's say you're building those relationships. Are there any, I don't know if it's tools or frameworks or systems to use to be better prepared to make sure that you're on top of your relationships? Because there's only so many relationships you can actually keep active at the same time. So what is your best advice for preparing or staying on top or keeping some of those relationships healthy, so that you're top of mind for them, or at the very least they can sort of consider you?
That's a great question. So I've got 2 answers for you. So Dara Khosrowshahi, who is the CEO of Uber, said this in an article. He used to be a CEO at Expedia, so that's when I heard it. He said, if you see people that are making moves, you meet people that are just, you can tell they're going places, right? They're killing it. Keep in contact with those people. Whatever you can do to help them, do it. He even said, even if you have to take a demotion to serve under them, do it. Because people like that tend to take you with them. Just 100% true. If you kick butt and somebody's out, you see somebody that's out there killing it, those people, it doesn't matter where they are in their career. Let's say that they're lower level than you, because I've met people where I can see that, in MentorMesh, right? You see them and I'm like, wow, this person is super impressive. They're out there doing the work. They're consistent. That person is going somewhere. Those types of people, through their work ethic and their grit, I pay attention to and I always stay in contact with. Simply because I might need that rock star on my team one of these days. You know, that rock star might hire me one of these days, right? There's going to be people that are going to way surpass me. So definitely people like that you want to keep in contact with. But here's the thing though. What do I mean when I say build relationships? I don't mean like go like have drinks and have dinner with everybody in your network. Like that's not what I mean. The key to building quality relationships is about having a personal interest in other people. Now, I don't mean like ask everybody about their family and what's going on with their kids. Like if you feel comfortable doing that, great. But that's not necessarily what I mean. Simply care about people's career growth and development. When you see a colleague that you appreciated working with and you see them get a new job, congratulate them. Hit them up on LinkedIn and say, hey, congratulations on that job. I would love to understand what the culture is like in that company. Let me know what your experience is like. They're in a good mood. They just got a job. They're like, yeah, of course, I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll let you know what's up because you care about their experience. You care about, you're celebrating with them, right? So really, it's just about having an interest in other people. And you don't have to do more than that. Like every now and then, every 6 months or so, what I do is I'll kind of go through my LinkedIn feed. And if I see people that I haven't talked to in a while, I'll hit them up and say, hey, how's it going? How are things going? Would love to catch up sometime, and just even saying that keeps me top of mind for them. They're like, okay, Jay remembers me. He must have appreciated our relationship enough to say hi. And I do that. If you see somebody that has a milestone, if they're posting something, anything you can do to continue to just stay in contact and show support. If people are posting online or they're celebrating something, that's the easiest way to show support. Just go show support, stay in contact with people. And every now and then, keep a list of the people that you really want to keep in contact with, that you want to help, and try to find ways to help them do anything. Even like for me, like I will invite people to come give talks at MentorMesh. They appreciate that because what I'm telling them is that I appreciate their knowledge that I think many people in the community would also love to hear. So that's one way that I can kind of keep in contact with people and say, hey, I value you because I value enough to introduce you to a bunch of people that I think could learn a lot from you. So don't think that like building these relationships means that you have to like go on vacations with them or something. It's not like that. Just be interested in them. Say what's up every now and then. Literally send them a message and say what's up. If they post something, that's the easiest way. Or every now and then just ping them on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is great for this because not everybody is on LinkedIn every day, but most people are on LinkedIn sometimes. So they're going to see your message at some point, right? So keeping in contact with people, definitely double downing on people that seem like you really want to build relationships with because you see maybe you want to emulate what they're doing and you admire them. Like double down on those relationships. If there's people that you think that you really value what they're saying, you really value what they're doing. If they're doing anything in public, there's a perfect opportunity to build relationships with them. I mean, I noticed like because I care about helping people and growing my community, I know everybody that likes my posts. Absolutely. Every time I do any post, and I see who supports me and who doesn't, right? So that's something I would say. There's certain people you may want to categorize as people you really want to get to know. Find any way that you can to support them, even if it's calling them out and on a public platform and saying, you know what, I just learned something incredible by this person, and I just wanted to share that or something, right? They'll appreciate that. A lot of people will. So you're right. You can't be best friends with everybody. That's not the goal, but you can keep in contact. You can be genuinely interested because I think that's what matters. It's not necessarily that you're spending an excessive amount of time, but that your interest is genuine, right? Don't just say, hey, how's it going? Like say something about what they're doing. Notice them, right? Don't make it, make it genuine. That's what I'm saying. As long as people are genuine, we like that. We need that, especially like with COVID, the way things have been, like we need connection, we need support. So, I think that's the advice I would give.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Yeah, be genuine, build relationships, play the long game. And thank you so much. I wanted to just quickly open it up. I think we have time to take one question before the final networking portion. So if anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. I'm happy to unmute you and you can ask your questions. If you have any questions for Jay, now is your time. And we'll then go into the networking portion. So please don't be shy. Feel free to ask whatever questions. I'm sure Jay will be willing to answer any questions that you might have. So if anyone is interested, feel free to raise your hand and put it in the chat. So we'll just wait a little bit. But again, thank you so much, Jay. All the things that you've mentioned and you've shared has been phenomenal. We'll definitely be writing a blog post about this entire talk and sharing a lot of the gems that you were able to share with the group today. Anyone have any questions?
People are generally shy. It takes them a couple sessions.
Yeah, I do see that sometimes. Some folks are shy; they don't want to ask a question in a large group. Some of them are intimidated. But I do think that you've shared a lot of like valuable information. So maybe you've covered every single thing regarding mentorship. Oh, I guess we have one from Barb. So thank you so much. The question is, how do you deal with failure and rejections, and what keeps you going? Very, very powerful question. So I'm happy to hear from you.
Yeah, so this is almost like a worldwide society problem. So we are taught our entire lives to get that A, to get that top A. Don't fail classes, always pass, right? Always do it right. But I tell you, like, failure is growth. You have to fail. You can't learn if you don't fail. Failure is everything. I think that the key is to embrace failure and to understand that it's growth. It's not failure, it's growth. Even if let's say you applied for a job and you got to the final interview and you didn't get the job. There's a million reasons why you couldn't have gotten that job. There's so many reasons why, but a lot of us will internalize that failure and start to question whether or not we can do it. Maybe I'm not fit to be a product manager. When maybe there was just really good candidates and you came really close and there was only one job, they had to pick somebody. It just happened to not be you. I've definitely had that where I've interviewed and man, it could have gone either way. It could have gone either way. And I would have been happy. There was one time we interviewed 3 different interns and they were all good. They were all good. The one that we did hire ended up becoming a senior data scientist at LinkedIn. And I wonder sometimes, I'm like, I wonder if we would have hired one of the other ones, if we would have helped them too. Anyways, the reality is there's a lot of reasons why things don't work out. Time and chance, nobody can escape that. But what you can think about is, how do you deal with failure? Even failing multiple interviews, the fact that you got that interview means you're this close. Because people that are not qualified, that don't have a chance, don't get interviewed. So you got to remember what your wins are. You got to remind yourself your wins. You got to remind yourself where you came from. Like even my story, you know, when I say it now, I can say it with such confidence, but I didn't even realize the power of my own story until I said it out loud. I never thought about it until I started offering mentorship. And as I started to say my story and seeing people's reactions to it, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I do have something to give. So that's why mentorship, even early on in your career, sharing, coffee chats, networking, right? Super important, because if you get in that habit, you even start to realize the power of your own story. So failure is growth, period. We all want to grow, which means we all have to fail. And as a product manager, guess what? The majority of your products will fail. A majority of the things that you're going to try will fail. So if you're not good with handling failure, you're going to have a difficult time in tech because it's all about failure. The question is, what do you do after you fail? How are you going to do things differently? Are you going to change something? Was it just time and chance that just got you this time, right? Sometimes this is a numbers game. So the way you deal with failure, you've got to reprogram your mind, expect failure, and you have to think of it as growth. You know, and as far as like going back to what keeps me motivated and keeps me going, for me, like I love opportunity. The life that you live now does not have to be the life you live tomorrow. Where you live now, what your day-to-day is, what you do every day, can be dramatically different tomorrow. So if you set your mind to change your life, to change your lifestyle, to change what your everyday looks like, you can change it. And the tech industry can do that for you. You know, most people are still trying to get, you know, that 100,000, 6-figure job, right? Tech industry goes way beyond that, more than you would imagine. And it's not luck. It's not, there's so many opportunities in tech when it comes to quality of life, the money you can make. And this is not about money. A lot of people get caught up in money and they're like, well, I don't want to do it for the money. This is not about money. This is about freedom. This is about control. That's it. It's not about money. So you get skills that are in demand. You stay on top of what's going on in the industry. You aggressively pursue growth, which is something I talk a lot about. That gives you freedom, choice, control. And I think those are super valuable, especially if you have a family, right? I've got 4 daughters, so I have to think a lot about what kind of life do I want for them, right? And tech gives you the opportunity to fast track and change your generational income. You can create generational wealth for your children by these choices. And what's more exciting than that? You know, a lot of us come from very, very average to below average households. You can change your life. I don't have people in my family that make over 6 figures. I was the first one, and well beyond that. And I can give my children and my wife and my family a different type of life, my cousins and my parents a different kind of life because of the choices that I've made. And to me, that's exciting. That's really, really exciting. And when you think about all of that is open to you right now. It's all possible for you. It's not gated from you. There are people out there that want to gate it from you, but as long as the internet is free, you can do it. It's just a choice. Success is a choice. So thinking about the life I want to have and knowing that it's possible is what keeps me optimistic. It keeps me going. It gives me a lot of energy because I love the idea that whatever you hate or dislike about your life today, it does not have to be like that tomorrow. The only question is, are you willing to put the work in to make that happen? And you can't do that if you have a quitter's attitude. You can't do that if you react weirdly to failure, because failure is part of the game, right? A lot of people have failing businesses before they ever, complete a successful business. It's very, very common, right? So there's opportunity out there if you make that choice. So you got to switch the way you think about failure and think about the opportunity that the free internet is providing for you.
Awesome. That's very remarkable. Thank you so much, Jay. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us in this event. We had a wonderful time speaking to you, and you've shared so much. Like I said, we're going to summarize a lot of the things that you've mentioned in the blog post. So really do appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you so much for joining us at Collab. So now I'm going to stop the recording, and then we'll move on to the networking portion. So if you're interested, feel free to stay behind. I'm going to open up a couple breakout rooms, and then you can join those rooms and then just sort of like talk more about how the session went, exchange LinkedIn's, exchange learnings, all of that good stuff. So I'm going to open it up. Jay, you're welcome to stick around if you like. Otherwise, I'll be happy to chat with you like after, and then we'll take it from there.